As most of you know, in October and early November, I'll be coming out to your council to have a brief discussion about local planning agreements. We're trying to put them in place to give some clarity to what the local responsibilities are for planning services and also what the responsibilities are for the county. As well, I want to talk to your council about the fact that County Council is considering putting local planning on the levy in the 2017 budget and what the implications are and how the revenue will be shared for those planning services. So the draft agreement, if it hasn't reached your desk already, will be cutting to your desk in October and November, and we look forward to those discussions and be glad to answer any questions that you may have about that particular service. In July of this year, I completed one of the largest organizational reviews in the county's history. I took a look at a number of different factors, including positions that were underutilized. At the same time, I completed a market equity report for all of our management positions, a pay equity analysis for our management positions. I looked at jobs where job descriptions had changed significantly, and I took a look at job equity reports as well to make sure that we had everybody in the right position on the grid and that we were keeping up with the market. In addition to all of those administrative type changes, we also had to restructure the organization a little bit to address retirements. And over the course of all of these restructuring changes, we had a significant reduction in management HR costs. The minimum reduction that we'll see will be around $90,000 and the maximum will be around $140,000 in HR costs as a result of the organizational change that we put in place. Some key players that will be changing as a result of this organizational review, of course, Jim Gates, our longtime treasurer, will be going off to retirement at the end of this year, and we wish him well with that. Cindy Howard will be a new director in our organization. She'll be taking over the responsibility for finance and also having some responsibility in social services. You know a little bit about Lindsay Brock's new role as the CEO of the librarian, and we've restructured how the librarian responsibilities look, and we've also changed how the team below her reports into her and what their responsibilities are. For those of you that regularly use our legal services, you'll be glad to know that Nicholas Loeb is now a full-time member of our organization, and he will be the county solicitor along with Wayne and helping out local municipalities with whatever legal challenges that they might have. A bit of sad news as Jim Pretty has, sad and good news as Jim Pretty has moved on to be the head of IT for the city of Woodstock. We're very proud of Jim and his new role, but we'll miss him dearly, and we'll be reorganizing the IT department as a result of his departure as well. As I mentioned earlier, Lindsay Brock is our new CEO of Library Services, and she takes over in a very important time for us as we are expanding our library services and also making a number of changes from a strategy perspective. We had an incident earlier this year with a branch fire in Mount Bridges that was caused by lightning. For those of you that don't know, it caused significant damage to the facility, and we've been working with the town of Strathroy-Caradoc on addressing this issue along with our insurance provider. We set up a temporary branch in Mount Bridges to address the needs of the community, but we're looking forward to early in 2017 getting back into that Mount Bridges location. The library board is also working very hard on a new strategic plan that will take advantage of our new services that we are providing in the library and also look to better utilize our new facilities that are developing within the county. And speaking of new facilities that are developing within the county, we're very proud that all the areas where we were hoping to have comprehensive libraries are now well underway in their planning to complete this goal. We have new developments happening down in the southwest Middlesex area, and the area of Thames Centre is well along their way in developing a comprehensive library as well. There are exciting times for our libraries as they continue to expand, as they become more than just a place to hold books. We've been working hard to make sure that they're the place where your community can go for their first point of contact for a variety of pieces of information, from social services to tourism information to employment services to provincial and federal services to itinerant services, meaning third-party services such as school board information, or Fanshawe College information, or Western information, or a variety of other providers that are utilizing our comprehensive libraries to deliver services in our community every day. We're really trying to create a community hub and community connector role for these libraries, and every day we get a little closer to that goal. Consolidated Municipal Service Manager Agreements. It's a term you've probably heard briefly or maybe a few times over your career, but essentially what these do are they're designed in 1998 to provide the rules for how these services, social housing, Ontario Works, ambulance, and childcare are delivered across boundaries in Middlesex and London. The service agreements that we have in place come up for renewal every once in a while, and this is the year where we start planning for the renewal in 2017. During the last time we renewed these agreements, we made some significant changes that resulted in cost savings for the county. I anticipate that during this set of agreement negotiations, it'll be as much a status quo type of discussion as anything, and that most of the work will be just administrative in nature as opposed to major financial changes. Nonetheless, this does take quite a bit of time, and it happens a little bit below the surface, so I wanted you to know that many of these agreements are coming forward for renewal in 2017, and you'll start to hear about that in the news probably around late 2016. It's that time of year again where we look to find the head governance official for the County of Middlesex. Candidate declaration happens in November. It happens at our first meeting in November, where candidates are allowed to come forward and declare that they're interested in becoming the warden. It's an exciting time for us here as everyone gets into election mode, and I'm sure you can imagine how exciting it is for the candidates as they go around and visit with their county colleagues to try and convince them that they're the best person to lead Middlesex County for 2017. At the inaugural meeting in December, we will be having that's when we will be having our election, and that's the time when we'll know who the new warden will be. We just completed a visioning session for our county council where we discussed a number of topics. We had a discussion about whether we should develop a community improvement plan. We talked about the social housing network and how it works, and we also talked about whether or not there should be county development charges. All three topics were controversial in nature. There was no consensus that was developed on any one of these issues as of yet. It's too recent for that to happen, but I would encourage you to talk to your county councillor or your local councillor about all three of these subjects. In regard to the community improvement plan, Kara presented a report on what a community improvement plan would do, what it would look like, and what some of the scope and cost might be for a community improvement plan. In regard to social housing, we looked at new social housing development projects in the county and also in the city, and looked at the new governance model that's being put in place for housing services in Middlesex, London. In regard to county development charges, we had a report from a fellow who provided us with a good overview of what county development charges could pay for and what the impact might be on various communities of having a county development charge. So in the coming weeks, we'll see a couple of reports to figure out where county council wants to go on each of these different issues. But in the meantime, I would encourage you to have your say by talking to your county councillor about what your vision is for each of these different areas. If you'd like to learn more about this visioning session, the agenda and all of the presentations are online at our website, middlesex.ca. Here's a rendering of what the 50 King Street project that we're working on, the development we're working on for 50 King Street might look like. It's an important project for the county in a number of ways. Primarily, for those of you who don't know, the 50 King Street revenue from the health unit lease right now accounts for approximately 2% on the levy. It's a very valuable piece of property to us, both from a levy perspective and a future perspective for the development of the Middlesex London area. So we've been working very hard on this project for the last number of months, and also actually over a couple of years we've been preparing. Why is it important to prepare, and why are we doing this work with the OMB to get ready for development at this property? It's because we don't know how long the health unit will be leasing the existing 50 King Street property. They have a 1-year out clause now in their lease, and they could, on a moment's notice, give us that 1-year notice and be out of that building, resulting in a building that could sit vacant for a long period of time on a very developable piece of land. So what we've been doing is trying to get the zoning changes necessary to develop the property in the event that the health unit moves. The OMB preliminary hearing is complete now, and we have a hearing date established for April. And we expect a decision on both our severance application, where we're trying to sever the 50 King Street property from the rest of the county property, and our zoning application in April. So as I mentioned, it's a very important project for us, and we are spending quite a bit of time making sure we get it right, and there'll be more updates in Q4. You may have seen a little bit about this in the news over the past couple of weeks, and this is our new ambulance headquarters. There's a artist rendering of what it will look like, and it's a very, very new state-of-the-art facility that has a 2017 early 2018 completion date, with training and education facilities, new management headquarters, station consolidation. We had a number of stations in that south part of London that are being consolidated into this new headquarters, a decontamination facility that is becoming more and more important as SARS and other types of Ebola and other types of diseases are being transmitted into this area. We needed a decontamination facility for after we handle patients that have those types of inflictions. We also are going to be working towards a centralized deployment model for our services, and this facility helps with that, and a complete logistics facility so that we have ambulances that are fully ready to go, being prepared by logistics trained folks as opposed to ambulance people and paramedics. It's a $14.2 million project, a no small project by any stretch, and a really important project for the future of our ambulance development in Middlesex and London. Not only are we developing a new ambulance headquarters for Middlesex, London, we're also looking at a number of our ambulance stations, and these primarily are in the county of Middlesex, where we're making a pretty dramatic reinvestment in response to our strategic plan that really suggested to us that we need to be in new locations and have new builds in some locations to better serve the public and better serve the changing demographics and to help improve response times. One of the areas that we're focused on right now is in Dorchester, where we're looking to do a new build, and we're trying to purchase a piece of property adjacent to the fire hall in Dorchester in the Thames Center area. And that will be a new build that we're moving on fairly quickly and hope to have completed in 2017. As well, in Strathroy, we're looking at a new facility to replace the existing one. We're working with the town of Strathroy on a new facility in the former PUC building and former police building that will really put us in a great position to serve the growing call demand in that community and respond to services or requests for service throughout the county. I had a couple of questions about where we are with the Human Resources Project for local municipalities, and as you know, in 2016 we carried an amount for this project in our budget. But during the implementation phase in early 2016, it became clear that several large users would like to head in a different direction. Primarily what they were focused on was the fact that their human resources needs might be different from the larger population of Middlesex County, and they thought that they would like to head in the direction of hiring their own human resources director or human resources personnel. Whenever that happened, and we had at least two of the larger municipalities suggest that that's the direction they wanted to go, the project lost feasibility early in 2016 and just simply wouldn't have the capacity to serve the rest of the county without all players being around the table on that. I'll take a look at it again in 2017, probably included in our draft budget to have that position in place and have a larger conversation with the CAOs about where they think they're at with the Human Resources Project in 2017. I always like to try and give you a little overview as to what's happening at the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. The Western Ontario Wardens Caucus is largely a voice for rural Ontario and small urban Ontario on a variety of issues. And they're obviously comprised of the wardens across southwestern Ontario, all the way up to Simcoe and down to Essex. Right now they've got a number of big projects on the go. I'll talk about SWIFT towards the end, but right now they're also working on an economic development study that does have some local economic development implications. In general, what they're trying to do is to gather a bunch of information about the condition of the economy in southwestern Ontario that they can use to make a case to the government of Ontario that they need different levels of support for economic development. I'll think that I'll see a report on this in November, and I'll certainly provide you with the appropriate links once I get the draft report. Fire medics is another issue that's important to the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. All of us are delivering ambulance services throughout southwestern Ontario, are concerned about the concept of having fire medics. These would be fire personnel that would also be acting as paramedics. We're looking at it from a cost perspective and a service the delivery perspective to see whether this is the best way to serve our residents. And we're also working with the Ontario Association of Paramedic Chiefs to greater understand where the province might be headed with this issue and what the implications might be for paramedic services in rural and small urban Ontario. One of the things that I started with the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus was the OFA Rural Issues Working Group. I recognized probably last year or the year before that we needed to have a better connection with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. That connection's been going very well so far. We've developed 3 or 4 key issues that we'll be moving forward with as a group, not only at the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, but I involved the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus as well. So it's a triumvirate of organizations working towards trying to solve some rural issues. Again, there's a report that's coming forward in November that I'll provide to you that outlines our top priorities for these rural issues, and I think it'll be very enlightening as to what some of the work is that's going on to address these issues. SWIFT is a large project, as you may know, that has recently moved out of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus area of responsibility, as they've established a board of directors for SWIFT that is independent. That board of directors has Warden Maudsley on it, and he is keeping very close tabs on the development of this project. There has been a separate administration established as well, a CEO and a treasurer. So it is now separate and apart from the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, and in itself is a nonprofit board put in place to deliver these services, to deliver internet services across southwestern Ontario. They're working on getting a funding agreement in place. Of course, you know there's been a funding announcement. That's a long ways away from a funding agreement. In the past, these funding agreements have taken up to a year. So it's important to make sure that when you hear from your residents about how SWIFT is going or get asked questions, there are a number of updates that I can direct you to on how the project is going. But patience is going to be the key with this project. In particular, County Council is still waiting on a number of answers about our involvement. And what we need to know is really, when is the project going to get off the ground in Middlesex County? We are not on the highest need category of counties across Ontario, and if they do it on a needs basis in the delivery of these services, it might be a long time before we see any development in Middlesex County. What are they going to do, and who are they going to do it with? Who are their partners going to be? Are still 2 big questions that haven't been answered. And how much money we'd have to contribute as a community to make this private sector service better in our community is another question that County Council is still waiting on. Essentially, the position that we have right now for County Councils is that they're not going to commit until a business plan for Middlesex is presented that answers all of these questions. We've been storing some money in reserve in the event that we get answers to these questions so that we don't have to have a big hit on the levy to participate. But right now, the real big question is, how will the board distribute the resources that are available to them or that will be available to them? Are they going to do it based upon need? Are they going to do it based upon politics and trying to get as much services across the region in an equal fashion as possible? Big questions, very few answers at this point. So when you're talking to your residents, please try to show some patience with the process, because a project of this magnitude will take some time to develop. Time sure does fly by, and it just seems like yesterday that we were cutting the ribbon on this fantastic facility, Strathmere Lodge, that has served our residents well for 10 years now. We celebrated that occasion in May with Brent Kerwin, our new director at Strathmere Lodge. For those of you that haven't met Brent, I'd encourage you to introduce yourself. He's a fantastic employee for the County of Middlesex that we were able to bring to the county from Niagara region, and he's just done a fantastic job out there. The way we know he's doing a fantastic job, obviously, is through our annual inspections and the work that's being done by the Ministry of Health to make sure that the lodge is the best it can possibly be. I tell anyone that'll listen that the Strathmere Lodge and nursing homes in general that are public in this province are the most regulated facilities of any in all of the province, and the inspections that are completed are unannounced, and they were being done annually, and the province just announced that they're going to be done every 3 years instead of annually. And so that is a welcome change, because the work that has to be put into preparing for that annual Ministry of Health inspection and the time it takes for that inspection, which is often more than 2 weeks, is something that is better done on a 3-year average versus annually, in my view. We also had a change in our medical director, as Dr. Philip Vanderwall is replacing our retiring doctor, Paul Ferner. And that is, we're very happy for the one doctor that's retiring, and very glad that we're able to get Dr. Vanderwall to join our team as medical director. And it's been 16 years, as the slide says, that Dr. Ferner has been supporting Strathmere Lodge, and we're very proud of his contribution to our community. I think there are literally hundreds of other topics from the county perspective that I could provide you that would give you greater insight into the work we're doing, but I think I'll leave it at that for today, and just simply ask that if you have any questions that you contact me, and we'll make sure that you have, in the last slide, that you have all the contact information you need to make sure that you can get me in a timely way. The 2017 budget is something that I'll save for the Q4 update. I want to talk to you a little about the impact of reassessment and the changes that are happening in farm tax assessment. Healthy Kids is a fantastic program that I love to brag about, and the work that Nadine Devon is doing in that area, and we'll talk a little bit more about where Healthy Kids is. Economic development, Kara loves to brag about the work that's going on in economic development, so we'll give her an opportunity at that in the Q4 update. Wayne wants to talk to you about some of the challenges facing the legal department and where we're headed next with our report requirements in Q4, so he'll be here. I'll also answer any questions you have from this presentation, and talk a little bit about the local council visits that we want to complete in February. As always, if there are items that you'd like us to cover or like me to talk about, please don't hesitate to ask. You can always reach me at CAO@middlesex.ca and send your questions along about this update or what you'd like to hear more about for our next update in Q4. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.